Hello and welcome back, everybody. In this session, we are going to start with the first session of literary criticism, which is we're going to talk about the literary criticism of Plato. Okay. So Plato's works are primarily written in the form of dialogues, and the characters engage in discussions and debates. So basically, Plato was the disciple of Socrates. And most of the works of Plato are written in the form of dialogues wherein Socrates plays a very important role as one of the interlocutors. So Socratic method यहाँ से आता है, which is in the form of dialogues. Socratic method, Plato's teacher Socrates often serves as a central figure in his dialogues. Socrates के बारे में हम बाद में भी बात करेंगे, but जो Plato's criticism जो है, it mainly surrounds what we are going to talk about is about poets. So what is it that Plato talks about poets, and what does he say about poets, and why does he not want poets in his Republic? Republic में he talks about this ideal place in which he says poets की कोई जगह नहीं है, because everything that Plato talks about is what are the things that will do good to the society. And he proves with his reasons that poets are not ones which are good for society. Why? Let's see. So Plato's criticism जो है, we can see in the works Republic and Ion. Primarily, they revolve around his skepticism towards the value and morality of poetry. So what is the value of poetry in this society? That's what he talks about. And what is the moral nature of poetry? कि क्या poetry हमें कोई morality सिखा रही है? He believed that poetry, being an imitation of physical world, is removed from the realm of ideal forms and thus lacks true knowledge. We talked about simulacra in the last session, wherein we talked about Jean Baudrillard. And I told you that Baudrillard is not the first one to talk about copies. Plato had already talked about it. Plato कहते हैं that poetry जो है वो actually copy है. It is an imitation of the physical world. It is removed from the realm of the ideal world. He talks about two worlds. One is the ideal world, one is the physical world. Let's see. Ideal world क्या है? He says जो ideas है ना दिमाग में वो real है. If we talk about the creation of the world, he says that see, this world around us, it is not real because the idea was real. And after that, it is implemented in the physical form. Let's take an example of, let's say a painting, okay? You paint, and what you do is you draw a tree. What is that? आपने एक tree draw किया. How? Because it exists in the physical world. आपने पेड़ देखा, आपने पेड़ को ड्रॉ किया, तो आपका पेड़ तो ऑलरेडी कॉपी है. But the tree that exists in this world, the physical world, Plato says वो भी कॉपी है, because idea of the tree is real, and that's the ideal form of a tree. So in the physical world, it is already one time removed from the reality. And when you are painting it or when you are drawing it, it is two times removed from reality. Similarly, he says poetry, whenever you write a poem, you are inspired by some things in the physical world. So similarly, poetry is also like that, removed from the reality. It is an imitation of the physical world, which is also an imitation of the ideal form. I hope it is clear. And that is why he says it lacks true knowledge. Poetry, it lacks true knowledge. He talks about few things: mimesis and imitation. Mimesis, imitation, copy. Plato criticized poetry for being a mere imitation of the sensory world, which he saw as a copy of the higher reality of the forms. He argued that poetry is twice removed from reality and as such does not provide genuine knowledge. देखो एक उस टाइम पे क्या हुआ ना, during the time of Plato, philosophy took over. So before Plato's time, it was a time of art and literature. But during Plato's time, philosophy became very important. And philosophers क्या करते थे? They tested everything. How? They put the test of reason to everything. They started seeing, okay, is it good for the society? So reason became very important for them. So this is how Plato is seeing poetry. He says that poetry क्या है? Poetry सिर्फ एक imitation है sensory world की, physical world की. And already physical world एक higher realm का copy है. That is why poetry is 2 times removed from reality, and it does not give us any genuine knowledge. That was one reason. Second reason he gave, moral influence. Plato was concerned about the moral influence of poetry on individuals in society. He believed that certain types of poetry, like tragic, emotional poetry, could arouse irrational emotions and desires, leading to moral confusion and ethical deterioration. So he talks about emotional appeal of the poetry. He says that कुछ poems ऐसी होती हैं जो हमारे बहुत tragic होती हैं और emotions के साथ खेलती हैं. And poetry, by poetry here, it's a larger term to literature. So the genre, if we talk about tragedy as a genre, tragedy arouses in us so many different types of emotions, right? Sometimes anger, sometimes empathy, and sometimes we cry also watching or reading a tragedy. So Plato says that irrational emotions arouse हो जाते हैं, irrational desires भी arouse हो सकती हैं, जैसे anger से why doesn't this person kill that person, that kind of desires. And that is why he says that leads to moral confusion हमारे अंदर, in the audience, and which is not good for the society. Then he talks about rationality versus emotions. अब आप किसको ऊपर रखोगे, rationality को या emotions को? So Plato valued reason and rationality as the highest faculties of human soul. He believed that poetry, particularly emotional and passionate forms, could arouse the irrational parts of the soul and disrupt the balance between reason and emotions. And somewhere this is right also, One of the points that, Plato talked about while talking about drama is very nice. And he says that in literature, you will find that the good people are always sad till the end. And the bad people, the cruel people in any form of drama are always happy throughout the work. It's only at the end that they meet their fate. But it's the end. कितना सही बात बोली है ना. अगर आप मूवीज़ भी देखते हो या कोई टीवी सीरियल देखते हो, आप देखो जो अच्छे इंसान है ना, वो पूरे टाइम दुखी हैं, रो रहे हैं, उनके साथ कुछ ना कुछ बुरा हो रहा है. और जो विलेनियस कैरेक्टर्स दिखाते हैं, दे आर ऑलवेज हैप्पी, ऑलवेज सक्सीडिंग इन देयर क्लेवरली प्लान्स. And it's only at the end that only one episode probably in which सच्चाई की जीत हो जाती है. And Plato says that it is not good. It leaves a very negative impact on the minds of people. Next is truth and deception. Plato argued that poets often portrayed false images and distorted truths. तो truth के बारे में बात करते हैं प्लेटो, और poets पे इल्ज़ाम लगाते हैं that poets often portrayed false images and distorted truths. He believed that this deceptive aspect of poetry could lead people away from understanding of reality and truth. इस पे जवाब दिया, देखो criticism का ये base form हो जाता है. And so many critics after Plato go on to respond to Plato's charges on poetry. तो जैसे फिलिप सिडनी आएंगे, वो बात करेंगे कि poets बोलते ही नहीं हैं कि हम सच कह रहे हैं. आप प्लेटो को वो कह रहे हैं कि आप कह रहे हो कि पोएट्स झूठ बोलते हैं, डिस्टॉर्टेड ट्रूथ्स दिखाते हैं. तो सिडनी कहते हैं दैट व्हेन डिड पोएट्स से दैट वी आर टेलिंग द ट्रूथ? वी आर नॉट हियर टू स्पीक अबाउट ट्रूथ, वी आर नॉट हियर टू टॉक अबाउट फैक्ट्स. दैट्स द वर्क ऑफ हिस्टोरियंस. एंड एज वी गो फॉरवर्ड इन क्रिटिसिज्म वील सी. रोल ऑफ पोएट. Plato questioned the role of poet in society. He believed that poets should either be guided by philosopher king or banned from the ideal city state altogether if their works did not align with the values of the state. And these are the reasons that he gives for the poets to be banned from the ideal state or his republic. And he says कि या तो उनको वो guided हो by philosopher king, or they should be banned. Yes, there were particular kinds of poetry that Plato approved of, like hymns, religious ones. His comments on drama, that was on poetry. All the observations made by Plato apply equally to dramatic writing. Whatever he said on poetry, all of that he said about drama also. Emotional appeal है बहुत ज़्यादा, unconcerned with morality, same. He made some more observations on drama. And he said it's appeal to baser instincts. Drama is staged, unlike poetry, right? Drama stage किया जाता है, दिखाया जाता है. So to make it more pleasing, dramatists often add quarrels on lamentations in tragedy and imitation of thunder and cries of beasts in comedy. All these arouse baser instincts in them, leading to bad taste and laxity in discipline. So Plato says that now poetry is to be read, drama is to be staged. To make it more appealing for the audience, dramatists जो है वो बहुत ज़्यादा ड्रामा ऐड कर देते हैं, जैसे कि लड़ाई झगड़ा दिखाएंगे क्योंकि लोगों को पसंद आता है. और जैसे कॉमेडी में लाउड थंडर एंड क्राइज ऑफ द बीस्ट. So Plato says that by watching all of these things, the baser instincts are aroused in people, and it leads to bad taste, and it leads to laxity in discipline. He says effects of impersonation. See, this one is good point. He says the people acting in drama are also affected by keep playing the evil roles like cowards, knaves, criminals. They let these evil qualities enter into their nature. Those tragedies that represent the best and noblest in life are of positive benefit to the community and deserves to be encouraged. So he did not say that all drama is bad, but he says that there are some works which represent the best and noblest in life, which are good for people, because people will learn something from that, but not all. So he says कि जो actors हैं who are acting a particular role, let's say there are few, see, even in movies you will find that there are few people who always are in evil roles, right? According to Plato, by keep playing those evil roles like cowards or criminals, those qualities, those evil qualities are somehow enter into the nature of that person acting. It's obviously you can argue on that, but there are some instances. I don't know if you've heard or if you've read. To play certain roles in movies, certain actors have gone through huge changes in their lives. जैसे एग्जाम्पल लेते हैं that Khilji role, Ranveer Singh played. So he talked about that, that to play that role, he locked himself inside a room to bring in that character in him, and he had to go through a lot. He has talked about it, you can see. He faced a lot of problems to act in a particular way. And not just that, there are more examples. If you've heard about the role of Joker, and I can't remember one more role. There is this actor, who undergoes a huge body transformation in one movie only. First of all, becoming malnutritioned and then gaining a lot of weight, like that. So actors are affected. This one is of course different. He says that roles जो actors play करते हैं, वो qualities enter हो जाती हैं. Next is tragic and comic pleasure. This one is also good. So when we go and watch a movie, मैं movie का ही example ले रही हूँ because there is hardly anyone who goes to watch a drama these days. So I'll take examples of movies only. When all of us we watch a tragedy, there are certain roles which make us cry, and that crying is pleasure for us. See, pleasure का मतलब सिर्फ वही नहीं होता है that okay we are laughing and it is giving us pleasure. No. Why is it in a painful scene that, what is it in a painful scene that causes pleasure? That's a very important question. Plato said that human nature is a mixture of heterogeneous feelings, right? We have anger, we have fear, envy, grief, etc., which are painful by themselves, but afford pleasure when indulged in excess. अब जैसे आप बोलोगे गुस्से में क्या प्लेजर है कोई प्लेजर? Have you must have seen, there must have been one or the other person in your life that you've seen breaking things when in anger. Maybe you are the one. कई लोग इतने गुस्से में आ जाते हैं कि वो फ़ोन उठा के अपना फेंक देते हैं या आसपास पड़ी चीज़ें उठा के फेंकते हैं, है ना? कई लोग क्या करते हैं, कई लोग रोते हैं, कई लोग चिल्लाते हैं बहुत ज़्यादा. क्यों करते हैं ऐसा? Because it gives them satisfaction. So that is indulging in one of the feelings in excess. Anger, fear, envy, grief, anything, which are painful but afford pleasure when indulged in excess. It pleases a man to lose his temper. इंसान को अच्छा लगता है. आप बोलोगे कैसी बात है, बट यस, इट गिव्स दैट पर्सन प्लेजर, क्योंकि उसे लगता है कि शायद मैं रो के अपना मन हल्का कर लूँगा, या मैं कुछ चीज़ें फेंक के या चिल्ला के मैं अपना मन हल्का कर लूँगी. So it pleases a man to lose temper or to go on weeping. In comedy, he says, pleasure takes the form of laughter. है ना? हम लोग कोई ऐसा सीन देखते हैं जैसे कोई कावर्ड है और वो कावर्ड बड़ा ही ब्रेव अपने आप को बिहेव कर रहा है, तो हमें हंसी आती है ऐसे रोल पे. तो प्लेटो क्वेश्चंस इट दैट इज इट गुड? Such pleasure, Plato says, is malicious and it arises from weakness of a person. You are watching a weakness, you are watching a coward person behave in some other way. That's the weakness of a person and you are laughing on that. So that kind of a pleasure is malicious, he says. ठीक है, तो ये these are the comments on poetry and on drama. One more thing that I want to talk about is Plato's allegory of cave. It's a very famous philosophical metaphor. It is found in book 7 of his work, The Republic. It's a vivid and symbolic narrative that illustrates his views on the nature of reality, human perception, and the pursuit of knowledge. The allegory is presented as a conversation between Socrates, Plato's teacher, and Glaucon, one of Plato's brother. तो ये जो allegory है, ये इन दोनों के बीच में conversation है. What is the allegory of the cave? सेटिंग, अब इमेजिन करो, द सेटिंग इज अ डार्क केव जहाँ पे बहुत सारे प्रिजनर्स हैं. दे आर चेन्ड एंड दे ओनली फेस अ वॉल. अंधेरा है, इट्स अ केव ऑफ कोर्स, सो ऑल दैट दे कैन सी इज अ वॉल. ऑन द वॉल सर्टेन इल्यूजन्स आर क्रिएटेड. हाउ? प्रिजनर्स के पीछे देर इज अ फायर. इट कास्ट्स लाइट ऑन ऑब्जेक्ट्स एंड दैट इज वाई सम शैडोज आर कास्ट ऑन द वॉल. द प्रिजनर्स बिलीव दैट that's reality for them. That's what they see all the time. That's prisoners' perception. Prisoners think the shadows are the only reality, giving names to these shadows. Liberated prisoner. In सब prisoners में से there is one prisoner who is freed. He turns around and he faces the fire. And at first he experiences discomfort and realization also. But this freed prisoner has an outside perception now. The freed prisoner ascends to the outside world, initially blinded by the sunlight. The pura time he was in the cave, but now he's free to go. He steps outside the cave and at first he's blinded because इतना ज़्यादा light है बाहर, sunlight है. But then, true reality. Gradually, the prisoner sees the true forms of objects and the natural world outside the cave. तो क्या मतलब है ये एलिगरी का? हम सब एक तरह से प्रिजनर्स हैं एंड वी ओनली सी व्हाट वी कैन सी इन द फिजिकल फॉर्म, है ना? हमारे सामने जो चीज़ें हैं वही हमारा परसेप्शन है. बट दिस वन फ्रीड प्रिजनर, ये कौन है? ये है फिलोसोफर हु कैन सी आउटसाइड थिंग्स, द ideal, the true form of objects and the natural world outside that cave. So forms versus shadows. Plato's theory of forms, basically physical world is a realm of shadows that I just told you. True form exists in an unchanging reality. This allegory, it serves as a metaphor actually for Plato's theory of form. So Plato gave this theory of forms, its ideal form and the physical form. It's also known as ideas. According to Plato, the physical world is a realm of shadows and imperfect reflections of true forms which exist in the higher unchanging reality. The philosopher's task is to move beyond the illusory world of appearances and to seek knowledge of the eternal unchanging form. It's the philosopher who can actually see beyond that reality. The allegory of cave addresses themes such as the nature of reality, relationship between appearance and truth, role of education and enlightenment, and challenges of philosophical explorations. It remains a central and influential concept in Western philosophy, and it has inspired discussions on topics ranging from epistemology and metaphysics to education and the pursuit of wisdom. It has remained a very influential concept and has been applied to various others. Now I give you the list of books by Plato. No date, of course, very old. The Republic, which we have to go through very nicely. So what I want you to do is, I want you to check how many books are there in the Republic. Tell me in the comment section. Then tell me that which chapters are important. In which chapter does he say that he banishes the poets from the Republic? So this is one of Plato's most famous dialogues. अच्छा, क्वेश्चन आया था एग्जाम में कि which of the following are dialogues by Plato? तो आप please check. See, I am giving you the list. You tell me in the comment section. इन सब में से dialogue form में कौन कौन सा है? Discussing justice, ideal state, the nature of the soul, and the allegory of cave. Okay. Phaedrus, it explores the nature of love, rhetoric, soul, featuring a discussion on art of persuasion. Remember, इससे भी क्वेश्चन आया है. Symposium, many times, 3-4 times. This dialogue examines the nature of love, including various speeches on the topic at a symposium. Symposium होता है, उसमें speeches हैं. It's a drinking party. Then we have Phaedo, discusses the immortality of the soul and presents Socrates' thoughts on the afterlife just before his execution. Socrates was executed. Why? Socrates was always after the truth. He had become a threat for the authorities. Why? Socrates would always question. He was the one, he always, in fact, he was the one who told people to question. He said, don't just believe anything that is told to you, question. So Socrates would always question. And of course, people sitting in authority do not like questions. They were affected by the questions. So he was poisoned. He was executed. Then we have Meno, explores the nature of virtue and whether virtue can be taught, featuring again Socratic questioning. That's what Socratic questioning is. Apology. It's not a dialogue, but a recounting of Socrates' defense during his trial, discussing his philosophy and approach to life. Then we have Crito. It focuses on the moral and ethical obligations of individuals towards the state, discussing Socrates' choice to accept his execution. We have Lysis, explores the nature of friendship and its philosophical implications. Euthyphro investigates the nature of piety and the divine command theory in ethics. Timaeus presents a cosmological account of the creation of universe and the role of demiurge. Critias, part of an unfinished trilogy. This dialogue discusses the ideal society of Atlantis. Philebus explores the nature of pleasure and its role in the good life. Gorgias discusses rhetoric, justice, and the relationship between philosopher and the statesman. And finally, Ion explores the nature of inspiration and the role of poets in society. So that is why for us the most important ones are Republic and Ion, which talk about the role of poets in society. All right. So these are the books of Plato. Please do some extra reading. For Plato, this much I would say is enough. And once you read from one book or maybe two books, you are good to go. I mean, you don't have to go, you just have to revise one or two times more and you're good to go. Just remember the names of the books, because match the following or sometimes which of the following ऐसे questions आ जाते हैं. ठीक है? All right, next will be Aristotle that we'll discuss, and we'll continue with the theory lessons also, and of course the history lessons also. I'll see you in the next session. Please share the video with others and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye-bye.